Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into a case that's, well, really stuck around in Asheville, North Carolina. It's the disappearance of Zebb Quinn. He was just 18, vanished back on January 2nd, 2000.
Yeah, it's a deeply unsettling one. Even after all this time, over 2 decades, and there's even been a conviction related to it, we still don't really have the full picture.
Exactly. Feels like there are huge gaps.
Huge gaps. So much is still unknown about what actually happened to Zebb.
So for this deep dive, we've gone through materials like the true crime podcast, A Good Kid, the 22-year murder mystery of Zebb Quinn, and also Zebb Quinn's Wikipedia page, which pulls together a lot of the details.
Right. And our mission here basically is to lay out the key facts as we know them, piece together that timeline, look at the theories.
And try to give you a clear sense of this really complex, kind of haunting case. So where do we start? January 2nd, 2000.
Yeah, let's start there. Let's talk about Zebb. He was 18, worked at Walmart in the electronics section. People described him as a good kid. He was even in ROTC.
Okay, so seemed like a pretty normal young guy.
Totally. And that night, he had plans. He was supposed to meet up with a coworker, Robert Jason Owens.
Owens, right. That name becomes central.
Very central. The plan was to go look at a car Owens was possibly selling out in Leicester.
Okay, so they arranged to meet up after work.
They met at the Walmart,
Yeah.
then planned to drive separately. The last time anyone definitely saw Zebb was about, 9:15 p.m.?
Around then, yeah. At a convenience store, a gas station, and he was with Owens.
Right. Now, what Owens says happened next, that's where it immediately gets murky.
Uh-huh. His story changed, didn't it? Or at least it was questionable from the start.
Well, his initial story was this. They leave the gas station. Zebb flags him down, says he got a page.
The page, okay. Early 2000s tech.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Zebb uses a payphone, and according to Owens, comes back totally frantic.
Frantic, why?
Owens didn't say why, just that Zebb was frantic, canceled their plans to see the car, and then just sped off in his Mazda.
And didn't he say Zebb hit his truck?
Yeah, supposedly rear-ended Owens' truck as he was taking off. That's part one of the weird car incidents Owens reported.
Part one. There was another.
So Owens claimed. He later went to the hospital himself.
Oh.
Said he had fractured ribs and a head injury
Oh, okay.
from a second car accident that same night.
Hmm.
But here's the thing.
Let me guess. No police report.
Bingo. No police report filed for either alleged accident, the supposed rear-ending by Zebb, or this mysterious second accident that injured Owens.
That immediately sounds off, doesn't it? Two accidents, one involving the missing person, one injuring him, and no official record.
It screams red flag. Why wouldn't you report that? It makes you question everything Owens said about that night.
Absolutely. So Zebb doesn't come home the next day.
The next afternoon, his mom, Denise Vilhakis, she's obviously worried sick, files a missing person report.
And then things get even stranger, right, with the phone call.
Oh, yeah. 2 days after Zebb was last seen, someone calls his work, the Walmart.
Claiming to be Zebb.
Claiming to be Zebb, yeah. Said he was sick, wouldn't be coming in. But the coworker who took the call
Knew his voice?
knew his voice well and said straight up, that wasn't Zebb. The voice was totally unfamiliar.
Wow. Okay. So obviously police traced the call.
And where does it come from? A Volvo plant.
Where Robert Jason Owens worked.
Exactly. A direct link back to Owens, contradicting his story and suggesting deception right from the start.
So when they confronted Owens about this call from his workplace, what did he say then?
Okay, so his story adapted. He admitted making the call, yes. But he claimed Zebb had called him first and asked him to call in sick for him as a favor.
That seems like a really odd favor to ask, doesn't it? If Zebb could call Owens, why not just call Walmart himself?
Precisely. It doesn't quite track, especially when paired with the fact that the coworker didn't recognize the voice. It just feels flimsy, like he was already involved in covering something up.
Right. It points suspicion squarely at Owens very early on.
Definitely. So the search for Zebb continues. And then, a few days later, January 6th.
They find his car.
They find his Mazda Protege. But the location and the condition, it's just bizarre.
Where was it found?
In the parking lot of a barbecue restaurant. Little Pig's Barbecue, I think. And significantly, it was near the hospital where Zebb's mother worked.
His mom, grandmother, and sister actually all work near there. That feels pointed, deliberate.
It does. Like leaving a message, almost.
Oh.
And the state of the car was just as weird. Headlights were left on.
Okay.
And inside the car, there was a dog. A live puppy. A black lab mix.
A puppy just left in the car. That's incredibly strange.
Incredibly. And then the other really striking detail. On the back window, someone had drawn lips, like a pair of lips, and an exclamation point.
In pink lipstick.
Pink lipstick. A puppy in lipstick. What could that possibly mean? Did the sources offer any insight into that?
Not really concrete theories, no, just highlighted how deeply unsettling and frankly weird these details were. The puppy feels like maybe an attempt to humanize the scene or maybe draw attention. The lipstick drawing? Who knows? A taunt. A symbol. It's completely baffling. And there was other stuff in the car too, right?
Yeah, investigators found a few things. A plastic hotel key card, but they couldn't trace it to anywhere specific. Some drink bottles, and a jacket that definitely didn't belong to Zebb.
So, lots of strange clues, but nothing immediately pointing to who left the car there.
Not immediately, no. Forensics collected everything, obviously, but no immediate smoking gun, no prints that shouldn't be there, that kind of thing.
But there was a witness sighting of the car later.
There was. A couple reported seeing Zebb's Mazda being driven downtown sometime after he disappeared, and they worked with police on a composite sketch of the driver.
And who did the sketch resemble?
Reportedly, it resembled a woman named Misty Taylor.
Ah, Misty Taylor. Okay, so let's talk about her connection.
Right. This brings us to another angle the police looked at early on. Zebb, in the weeks before he disappeared, had apparently taken a romantic interest in Misty.
Okay, a potential relationship angle.
Exactly. And maybe a motive. Because Zebb had apparently told his family he felt threatened by Misty's boyfriend at the time.
Wesley
Smith, yeah. Who was described as being abusive towards Misty. So you suddenly have this potential love triangle situation. Jealousy, maybe?
Did Taylor and Smith have anything to say about this?
They both denied any involvement whatsoever in Zebb's disappearance. And importantly, at this stage, there wasn't any clear link established between them and Robert Jason Owens.
Okay, so Owens is the last person seen with Zebb. His story has holes, the car is found with weird stuff, and then separately, there's this Misty Taylor-Wesley Smith angle. But they weren't connected initially.
Not overtly, no. But then there's another strange connection involving that pager message Zebb supposedly received.
The one that made him frantic.
That's the one. Police traced that page, and it came from the home of Zebb's paternal aunt, Ina Ustich.
His aunt. But wasn't their relationship kind of distant?
That's what was reported, yeah. Very little contact before this. So another really unexpected twist.
And did the aunt, Ina Ustich, admit to paging him?
Nope. She denied it completely, said she did make the call.
Okay, so who did? Does she have an alibi for that night?
She did. And it's interesting. She claimed she was out to dinner that evening.
With whom?
With Misty Taylor's mother, Tamara Taylor, and also with Misty Taylor and Wesley Smith.
Wait, the aunt who supposedly paged Zebb was having dinner with Misty Taylor, the girl Zebb liked, and Wesley Smith, the boyfriend Zebb, felt threatened by.
And Misty's mom.
The very same group. All together apparently providing each other with an alibi for the time Zebb disappeared and received that page.
That seems incredibly coincidental, or maybe not coincidental at all.
It certainly tightens the circle of people potentially involved or at least aware of something. And then Anna Ustich adds another layer.
What's that?
She later filed her own police report. Claimed her house was broken into on the same night Zebb disappeared.
Broken into, anything taken.
No, that's the weird part. She said things were moved around, disturbed, but nothing was stolen.
Okay, that's just odd. A break-in with nothing taken on that specific night, reported by the aunt whose house the mysterious page came from. What does that even mean? Right. Was it real? Was it staged to create confusion? Did it have anything to do with the page or Zebb? Just more questions piled onto the heap.
So for years, this case just sits there, doesn't it? Lots of weird threads, Owens looking suspicious, the Misty Taylor angle, the aunt, but no real movement. It goes cold.
Pretty much. It seemed like it might just remain one of those tragic unsolved mysteries until 2015.
Right, 2015. And the break comes from something completely different and horrific.
Totally unrelated initially.
Yeah.
Robert Jason Owens, the coworker Zebb was last seen with, he gets arrested.
But not for Zebb Quinn.
No. For the disappearance and murder of a couple, Christy Schoen and her husband, J.T. Codd. And tragically, their unborn child as well.
A truly awful case.
Just horrible, and the details that came out were gruesome. Owens eventually admitted he'd accidentally run them over with his truck.
Accidentally.
That was his claim. But then he pleaded guilty to dismembering their bodies afterwards. A truly shocking act.
And he got a long sentence for that, right?
Oh yeah, 60 to 75 years, essentially a life sentence for the Codd murders.
So, with Owens now convicted of this other violent crime involving dismemberment, police obviously took another hard look at the Zebb Quinn case.
Absolutely. The parallels, or potential parallels, were too stark to ignore. So also in 2015, they searched Owen's property again, this time related to the COD investigation, but obviously with Zebb in mind.
And did they find anything relevant to Zebb?
They found some disturbing things buried under concrete. The reports mention fabric, leather materials, and unknown hard fragments. Also things like white powder, maybe lime or mortar mix, in plastic bags.
Lime, often used to help decompose bodies, right?
It can be, yes.
Hmm.
Authorities were careful. They never officially confirmed finding Zebb's remains. But the discovery of these materials buried on Owens's property, it was highly suggestive.
It certainly points towards him potentially disposing of evidence, or maybe even a body.
It strongly suggested that. So the investigation into Zebb's case gained new momentum.
And that led to Owens eventually being charged in Zebb's case, too.
Yes. Took a couple more years. But in 2017, Robert Jason Owens was formally indicted for the first-degree murder of Zebb Quinn.
Okay. So, facing that charge, what happened next? Did he maintain his innocence?
Well, his story shifted again. In 2018, there were reports that Owens was telling investigators something new. He started pointing fingers elsewhere.
How do?
He claimed a family member was actually the one who killed Zebb. Said this relative dismembered and burned the body. He even suggested looking for evidence in a place called Bent Creek Experimental Forest.
A family member. This sounds like he's trying to deflect blame.
It certainly could be interpreted that way. This all leads up to 2022 and the resolution, legally speaking.
It's a plea deal.
The plea deal. Instead of going to trial for first-degree murder, Owens pleaded guilty to a lesser charge, accessory after the fact to first-degree murder.
Accessory after the fact, meaning he admitted helping cover it up, but not committing the murder itself.
Exactly. And as part of that deal, he gave his most detailed story yet, or at least a story.
Okay, what was this version?
He now claimed his uncle, Walter Gene Owens, who conveniently perhaps had died back in 2017, was the killer.
His uncle. Why would the uncle kill Zebb?
According to Robert Jason Owens' plea deal story, the uncle, Gene, was hired to kill Zebb.
Hired by who?
By Wesley Smith, Misty Taylor's boyfriend. The motive, Owens claimed, went back to that original love triangle theory.
Wow. So he's looping Wesley Smith back in, claiming his own deceased uncle was a hitman.
That was the narrative he presented. He said he and Zebb were lured out to Pisgah National Forest by Uncle Gene.
Lured out there.
And there, according to Robert, Uncle Gene shot Zebb multiple times with a .22 rifle.
And then?
Then, Robert claimed, the uncle dismembered and burned Zebb's body right there in the forest. Robert admitted he helped his uncle cover up the crime afterwards.
That is quite a story. Did the prosecution buy it?
Reports suggest they were pretty skeptical about the details. I mean, blaming a dead relative, bringing back the old boyfriend, it sounds convenient.
Very. So why accept the plea deal for accessory then if they doubted his story?
Well, you have to think pragmatically. They still didn't have Zebb's body.
Yeah.
Proving first-degree murder against Robert Jason Owens himself without that direct physical evidence would be incredibly tough at trial.
Right. A conviction might be uncertain.
Exactly. So this plea deal guarantees a conviction, albeit for a lesser charge. It legally establishes Zebb was murdered, and it holds Robert Jason Owens accountable, at least partially, on paper.
So what sentence did he get for the accessory charge?
It was about 12.5 to 15.75 years. But crucially, it was set to run concurrently with his sentence for the Cotta murders.
Concurrently, meaning it doesn't actually add any extra time to his existing life sentence?
Effectively, no. He was already going to be in prison for life anyway. But legally, it closed the book on the Zebb Quinn case, establishing his death as a murder and convicting Owens as an accessory.
Even though we still don't have Zebb.
Even though Zebb's body has never been found.
This case definitely captured public attention over the years, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It got a big boost in visibility around 2012 when it was featured on the show Disappeared.
Right, I remember that show, focused on unsolved cases.
Yeah, and even as recently as 2024, it was covered again by the Case File True Crime podcast. So the interest and the mystery, they really linger.
So let's try and summarize where this leaves us. Zebb Quinn, 18, vanishes in 2000 after meeting his co-worker, Robert Jason Owens.
His car is found days later, abandoned, headlights on, with a puppy inside and lipstick on the window. Just baffling circumstances.
Owens' story about that night is inconsistent from the start, including unverified accidents and a suspicious phone call traced back to his work.
Then years later, Owens is convicted of a separate, brutal, triple murder involving dismemberment.
Which leads investigators back to Zebb's case. Items possibly related to disposing of a body are found on Owens' property.
He's indicted for Zebb's murder, but eventually pleads guilty to being an accessory after the fact.
offering this elaborate story, pinning the actual murder on his dead uncle, supposedly hired by Misty Taylor's jealous boyfriend, Wesley Smith.
A story met with skepticism, but the plea was accepted due to lack of direct evidence, like Zebb's body.
So legally, Zebb Quinn was murdered and Owens helped cover it up. But the full truth, it feels like it's still missing.
Completely. We still don't really know what happened that night. Was the uncle involved? Was Wesley Smith involved? Was it just Owens all along? And the biggest question, where is Zebb Quinn? His family has waited over 2 decades for that answer.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Cases like this where there's no body, how do you find justice? How do you reach a conclusion when the most crucial piece of the puzzle is just gone?
What did closure even look like in a situation like this? You have a legal resolution, a conviction, but the profound uncertainty remains. It's a heavy thought. What happens when the story, the real story, might just stay buried forever?